BSc നഴ്സിംഗ് ഇല്ലാതെയും MSc നഴ്സിംഗ് ചെയ്യാമെന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ നിങ്ങൾ വിശ്വസിക്കുമോ? കോഴ്സ് ഇനി ഏതുമാകട്ടെ, BCom, BBA, BA, അതൊരു പ്രോബ്ലമേ അല്ല. ഈ ഒരു MSc നഴ്സിംഗ് പ്രോഗ്രാം വഴി നിങ്ങൾക്ക് UK-ൽ രജിസ്റ്റേർഡ് നേഴ്സ് ആകാം. അതെ, ഒരു മാസ്റ്റേഴ്സ് ഡിഗ്രിയും നേടാം, UK-ൽ രജിസ്റ്റേർഡ് നേഴ്സും ആകാം. ഇതെല്ലാം സാധിക്കുന്നത് UK-ലെ യൂണിവേഴ്സിറ്റി ഓഫ് കംബ്രിയ വഴിയാണ്. ഈ ഒരു കോഴ്സിനെ കുറിച്ച് കൂടുതൽ സംസാരിക്കാൻ നമ്മളോടൊപ്പം യൂണിവേഴ്സിറ്റി ഡെലിഗേറ്റ്സ് ആയ സൂസൻ ലിറ്റിൽ ആൻഡ് മേഗൻ ഹഡ്സൺ ഉണ്ട്. സോ ലെറ്റ്സ് ടോക്ക് ടു ദം. So welcome to Medcity, Susan and Megan, and tell me more about this magical course.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got a really exciting MSc Nursing program at the University of Cumbria. It's a 2-year master's qualification, and really this is designed for students who are not already qualified nurses. So the opportunity there is for students to transition their career. Maybe if they haven't already studied nursing, they're really passionate about developing those skills and entering that type of work. That program is going to help them to get there. And at the end of 2 years, there will be a fully registered and qualified nurse with that can practice in the UK.
And all this is without a nursing background, a degree as such, without a qualification as such.
Absolutely. And actually what's unique about this program is that it's actually only nurses that are already qualified who would not be eligible. So other backgrounds are accepted. If they've already got nursing, it's not really appropriate because it's getting them to that professional registration with the Nursing Midwifery Council, which I'm sure Susan can tell you more about.
Yeah, so it leads to the registration, right? So can you tell a bit about that?
So our course actually provides dual qualification. You get the MSc Masters at the end of the course, but you also get registration with the Nursing and Midwifery Council. And that registration allows you to practice as a nurse in the UK under the field, whichever field you've kind of trained under. So that would be the adult, children's, mental health or learning disability. And that just shows that you are working as a legal, ethical, regulatory nurse, and it just states basically that you're working to a really high standard with any patients, service users or clients that you would be working with. It provides us with a code of conduct, so that code allows us as nurses to be able to say, we are doing this for our patients, we will make sure that we advocate for them, that we are taking evidence research into account before we even deal with patients, and that we're using the best evidence that we can use to be able to give them the best outcomes.
So this registration that it leads to, is it after the 2 year that we start the process?
Yes, so that's on the final part of the course. So we do our own integrated gateway as well, and endpoint assessment. So that's already done by University of Cumbria as well. And what that does is that allows us just to send the information for the student to the Nursing and Midwifery Council, and then they would register direct with them to be able to then practice. They would need that PIN code, so they get something called a PIN code once they actually have registered, and then they can work
and
as
they can start
nurse.
working. Great. So we have a list of professions. They are basically allied health professionals, like the physiotherapists. Then we have operations theatre technician, physician assistant, occupational therapy, anesthesia technician. See, all of these professionals basically don't have an involvement like a nurse, but they're involved in patient care. So do these professionals also have this opportunity to enter into this MSc program?
Yeah, so I'll start on that one by saying that, as we've said, that other backgrounds that are not nursing are eligible to be considered for the course. The key requirement is the work experience. So we need a minimum of 500 hours of verified hands-on patient care experience. So it might be things like feeding, changing, handling, working directly with patients in a healthcare setting. That would be something that we'd be looking for in those cases. So not just the qualification, but that experience as well.
Right, that's great. So with that experience, that kind of experience, they do have an option of entering the course.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so what are the other entry requirements to this course?
Great. So the minimum entry criteria is 60% in the bachelor's degree in whatever field that they've studied previously, as well as that work experience. So 60% bachelor's plus 500 hours of work experience. We do also accept an English language waiver for English entry. So if they have achieved 80% in their 12th grade English language, even if there's been a 4 or 5 year gap, it's fine. Then we would not require an IELTS test. If they don't have that and they do need to do an IELTS, it will be an IELTS of 7 with no less than 7 in each area for that course.
All right. So what you just told me is that without an IELTS, they have an option of entering into the course if they have an 80% in their 12th grade.
Yes.
Right? And if at all they need to take the IELTS, it should be a 7 band.
Yes.
No less than 7 in each of these modules. All right. What about the application process? How does it start? How much time will it take?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things in the application process to be aware of. So initially, they would need to fill out our application form, which they can do with Medcity.
Right.
They would fill that out and submit various documents, including a personal statement or SOP.
Right.
And what's really important in that is that we see a real detailed and researched, thought out understanding of the role of the nurse. What is the NHS, for example, and what's their understanding of our National Healthcare Service in the UK, and also an understanding of the NMC that Susan talked about earlier. We need to see that. Once they've submitted the application, they'll then move to interview stage if their personal statement has been ticked off the list. And that's where Susan and her academic colleagues would come into the picture.
Yeah, so we would then interview the student based usually around sort of the nursing 6 Cs, just what fundamentals do they have to be able to come onto the course? How would they be able to manage different things? So they don't necessarily have experience maybe working in a set area, but they can relate their practice or their experience that they have to a healthcare environment. And that application, that interview would usually take sort of about 45 minutes.
Yeah. So the interview is done by the academic team.
Yes. Yeah. So that would happen before they get the offer.
Right.
So they need to clear the interview and clear their personal statement before we can move to an offer. Once we have done that and the academic team has said, yeah, great, they're qualified for the course, we'd look to then issue the offer.
The offer.
And now that process, once they've applied, we usually give minimum of 2 weeks time before the interview so they can prepare. We've got lots of helpful resources on how to prepare.
Right.
Once they've done the interview, we'd be looking to issue the offer or at least share the outcome within 48 hours.
Oh, that's quick.
Yeah.
And what about the fees? How much would it cost to take this master's program?
So the fees for their MSc is £17,800 per year for 2 years. But we do have a scholarship available, which is our Global Health and Wellbeing Scholarship. So that would be a £4,000 discount for the first year.
And how can you avail the scholarship?
So it's automatically applied. As long as the students meet those minimum entry criteria when they do apply, it will just be issued in their offer letter automatically.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
So once they're done with this course, what are the job placement options? Like you said, it leads to the registration. So how much of support is given and what are the opportunities in the UK right now? Because there's a lot happening in the UK and a lot of students have this belief that it is difficult getting into the country. And even if you clear the course or you're there in the country, it's not easy to get a job. So how would this course in the University of Cumbria help them with that?
So University of Cumbria, we come in the top 10% of employability, and I think that's even higher in the Institute of Health. As programme lead for one of the apprenticeship programmes, I've never had a student that's walked away without a job, maybe international or UK based.
Right.
There's always something out there for them, and they might have to look a little bit wider. So that's sometimes looking into the private sectors, but there is generally always a cry out for healthcare workers in the UK,
right?
Even in many different areas. So what we do is the placements that we have, we tailor those to different areas so that they get a little bit of experience, and they can use that on their CVs so that when they actually do apply for jobs, they've got some experience in different areas that gives them the highest possible chance to be able to get a job, within whichever sector they're looking at working in.
Yeah, and it's worth mentioning as well that, so we've obviously, the students will get the academic support from the personal tutor and that tailored placement that Susan's mentioned, but we do also have a career service as well, which students can access for 3 years after they've graduated.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so when they're then looking to either work in the UK or in India or a different country, they can access our career support services to get...
So is it available even outside the UK in different countries, or you're just giving
career
them the
support?
Yes, the career support.
Yeah, they can access that wherever they are for 3 years.
All right.
Yeah.
It's also worth mentioning as well that we still don't have many people applying to the nursing courses in the UK at the moment. It's an ever-changing dynamic environment that we work in. So what it looks like now, it's not going to look exactly the same in a year's time, 2 years' time, 3 years' time, 5 years' time. So by the time they finish the course in 2 years, it's going to look very different to what it even does now. And I myself still work in practice, and I see it changing sort of so rapidly that even 2 years ago, we're looking at a very different environment to what we are now. So it changes so rapidly.
And I think what you asked is that there is definitely still an element, I think, of fear or uncertainty.
Yes, there is.
About coming to the UK.
Yes,
what will the future look like?
Yes.
And whilst there are no guarantees, as we've mentioned, the UK does still remain a really strong destination for quality of education and those employability outcomes at the University of Cumbria. Hopefully, we see it give students confidence in that they're not just going to leave with a degree certificate. They are going to have the placement, practical, and that holistic set of skills that they need to enter the job market and secure employment, whether it's in the UK or elsewhere.
So is it kind of 100% placement?
No, it's 50% placement and 50% theory.
All right.
So the academic side would cover the 2,300 hours that you currently need to enter the register on the NMC.
All right.
And your 2,300 clinical placement hours as well. So that's the minimum that we would be looking for. So we would make sure that the students have those, so we keep an eye on all of the hours, etc. And we would make sure that the hours were committed to for them. They're going on the NMC register.
So does the university help them with that for the placement?
We would just sort all of the placements out, so they don't need to provide their own placements. We make sure they get a full range of experiences, and that they are placed sort of within the area that we're in, so that they wouldn't have to travel too far. But obviously, if you're placed maybe in community, there might be a bit of an expectation that you would have to travel to be able to get to a placement area. But the experience that they'll get from that is going to, again, going back to employability, that's going to give them more employability because they've had a range of experiences.
Could you tell us a bit more about what to expect if a student enrolls for the course? How challenging is the course going to be?
Yeah, so, obviously when they first come in, it's quite an intense course, the MSc course, because you're coming into a condensed course for 2 years. The normal BSc nursing course is 3 years to be able to register as a nurse. So the MSc course, it's exactly the same content that you're going to get from the 3-year course, but it is condensed into a shorter time frame, which makes it quite intense. So I don't want to lie and say it's really easy, because it's really not. And again, it depends on your background. So we teach the theory. So we start off with something like anatomy and physiology, so that you have an understanding of the human biology of your patient that's in front of you, so that you can then start to look at how will that patient maybe deteriorate with different conditions. Then how are we going to look after them when we do that? But we look at things like I was saying earlier, the legal principles of things like the Mental Capacity Act, the Human Rights Act. How are we going to look after this patient, taking those into consideration? But ethically, we need to think about letting them make their own decisions. So how are you going to allow them to make their own decisions, particularly if they're doing things that maybe we wouldn't agree with? And it's having an understanding of all of those different types of concepts that we need for nursing to be able to apply that to any patient that really is in front of you, because no two patients are the same. So we're never going to be able to, what works for one person doesn't necessarily work for someone else. So we want our students to be qualified enough to have whoever's in front of them and be able to deal with that.
Yeah. I think it makes sense because initially you're taking candidates who are not exactly from a nursing background.
Absolutely.
So getting this into a condensed form so that they're fully aware of how things work is important.
And I'd just like to add to that as well, that one thing we always try and prepare the students for is the difference of the role of the nurse in the UK, because that placement experience, whilst it's really exciting for them, they'll get to really get hands-on with patients in real settings. That setting can maybe be a little bit unfamiliar to what
it's very different from what we practice here in India.
So it's just being open-minded, being willing to learn and doing that research beforehand, because that's when we talked about the admission process. That's why we want to see the research, because we want to have the confidence that students are well prepared for that transition and for what their role and study is going to be on an MSc nursing programme.
We also, again, it's worth mentioning that all in practice, they always have a practice supervisor and practice assessor as well. So there's always somebody that's looking after them. They're never thrown in at the deep end.
Right.
It's always, it's a gradual process as well. So when they go on the first placement, their expectation really is that some of it's maybe a bit observational. They'll maybe observe something, then they'll practice it with their practice supervisor and assessor. But to get them to work autonomously, we'll start to be looking at, what can you do independently? Maybe like a wound dressing, right? You've watched it, you've had a go at it, and I've seen that you've had a go at it a couple of times.
Right.
Now I want you to go and actually do that yourself, and start to build the confidence in working autonomously. So when they finish the course, it's not suddenly, oh, well, there's nobody here now. It's like just
so that's where the placements help in, right?
Yeah.
Where they're actually trying out things that they've learned in class.
Absolutely.
And continuous support that you're fully preparing them to work as a registered nurse once they complete the course.
Yeah. We do some simulated practice as well, so they can also practice certain skills in a safe environment. So things like cannulation and vein puncture and catheterization. Before we sort of let them loose on a patient, we will watch them in practice ourselves, because we all have our own backgrounds. As I said, I still work in practice. Right. So I want the nurse to be the person that I want to work with, or the person that's looking after my mum and dad, or any of my family. And I think that's really important. So when we're training them with that at the forefront of our mind as well, that they can look after a patient holistically, but they can also look after them as we would want to be treated ourselves, or treating close family.
Right. So does this come with any specialization as such, the program?
Yes, the MSc has two pathways.
Okay.
So we have adult nursing or mental health nursing available for the MSc. And again, comes down to the research, getting a bit familiar with what type of nurse that the student wants to be in their career.
So they have to choose that early on, right?
Yeah. In the application, they would select the specialism, and then that would determine some of their field-specific modules that they'd have. So they have like generic modules where they're both taught together, and then they have the field-specific ones for the specialisation. And it would also impact their placements as well a little bit.
It does, yeah. So if you were coming on as a mental health student, you would probably have more mental health specialised placements.
Yeah. Right.
And as an adult, you would have more adult. Although if you come on as an adult, there is an element of some mental health. I see mental health, and I'm a registered adult nurse. But you do see some mental health within there. So it's really good to have some experience within that as well. So but there would be some element of crossover with those placements as well, just to give you that broad experience.
Right.
We don't want you being in there and then suddenly a mental health patient comes in with a wound,
and you don't know how to
look after them. So you need to be able to do both, really.
Yeah, it makes sense, because a patient, when they come in, they might have a lot of different concerns, and a nurse should be fully equipped for that. What about the international student support? What do you have? Because that's what is going to draw students from India for this course.
Yeah, great question. So within our global engagement office, which is where me and my team are based, we have some dedicated staff there as international student advisors. So we have Jade and Lu Chen, who are based in either the Lancaster or Carlisle campus.
Okay.
So Jade is probably the person that the students will get to know the most in Carlisle. But what she's there to do is really provide that one-on-one point of contact if the student has any concerns, not just about the program. It could be about finances, could be about mental health, money, anything. She's there as the first point of contact. And then what we have within that department in student services is individual dedicated teams. So we have a money and finance team, we have a mental health and wellbeing team. So the resources are there, but we have Jade there as the point of contact for them to reach out to first. But what I will say about Cumbria, and something that makes us quite special, because we're smaller, because those class sizes are smaller as well, we actually find that students tend to use their personal tutor as their first point of support.
Yeah, so our students all get allocated a personal tutor, and we all get to know the student really, really well. They get to know us really, really well. In some of the bigger universities, that probably doesn't happen as well as it does at Cumbria, and that's again because Megan said we've got the smaller cohorts, so we really get involved with them. All my students know who I am. They know where to come to if they have an issue. If I can't deal with it, I can signpost them to where they need to go to.
Right.
We usually, they have a vast range of support from their peers as well. So we have a number of international students that come, and I really love seeing the students, especially from the UK.
How diverse is the campus?
It's not as diverse as some of the bigger cities, say, for instance, but we do get, I probably have at least, 3 or 4 international students within my cohort. And my cohort sizes are normally about 20, so 20, 25 in that size for the apprenticeship, which is the side I kind of work on mainly.
Yeah, and in terms of like the overall diversity on campus, whilst our international community is small, it is quite diverse. So we have Canadian students, Chinese students, we have quite a few German students as well, South Asian, Nepalese. So it's very diverse, but as Susan said, it's predominantly a home-based university. So we have mostly UK students, but what that means for the student experience is it's a real immersion into British culture. And we really see such development and progression in the students, but their language skills, their confidence, their independence. By the time they've graduated 2 years later, they are, different people and really ready to enter the world of work rather than just being in that comfort blanket. So it's a challenge, but it's a really special experience for them.
Yeah, our students are really, really friendly and they really take on board the international students and kind of look after them. Yeah. And I was saying earlier, I often feel like uni mum for a lot of the students. So, but a lot of the other students will make sure that they're okay. I've had students take international students up into the fells, around the lakes and things, and they really get them on board. They'll bring cuisine in for the other students to try, and
wonderful.
It's fantastic. Yeah, we have they have a fantastic support network with their peers as well, particularly.
That's great to know, because that's the other concern that international students often have when they travel abroad. How safe is a country going to be?
I think in our area particularly, we've got a very low crime rate, particularly in Cumbria, so it's a very safe area to live in. You can wander around at 10 o'clock at night and you're absolutely fine on your own. It's really quite safe.
And like the campuses are fully open public campuses. It's not needed. We don't need that element of security. We have dog walkers walking through the campus, lots of green areas. So it's a lovely place to live.
Right. So if we're going to highlight 5 key features, why choose Cumbria? What would you say?
Oh, good for choosing only 5. I'd definitely start with employability. We mentioned that already. I think, thinking about the return on investment, thinking about the cost of living, knowing that we're really strong for career outcomes is probably number 1, I would say. Second one.
I'll jump in. I'm going to say support. Yeah. I feel like our students get such a huge amount of support. As I said, they all get a personal tutor, they get a practice assessor or supervisor. We liaise really, really closely with our students, and as I said, they get to know us really well.
Right.
They get a huge amount of support at the University of Cumbria because we are a smaller network. And I think that's our students. We do something called the NSS, which is the National Student Survey, every year.
Okay.
And one of the top things that we always come out with at Cumbria is the amount of support that we offer the students, and I think that should really be celebrated.
Yeah, definitely.
Within our institution.
Yeah.
Number 3.
I would say location. We haven't talked much about it.
Yes.
Location's an important one for Cumbria. We are spread across a number of campuses, but our region, as Susan said, is in the Lake District National Park.
Okay.
So really beautiful. And from that student experience point of view, it's like it'll be a completely different location for them to live. It's a lower cost of living. So the Carlisle campus, which is where the MSc Nursing is based, is actually the second most affordable city in the UK for student accommodation. So those things combined make it quite an attractive location. For 4, I would maybe say something specific to the programme.
I would say the lecturers. I think we have such a huge range of lecturers within our team, and we all work across the teams as well. So within our nursing teams, we have the MSc, but we also have the BSc Nursing, we have the apprenticeship, which is the Registered Nurse Degree Apprenticeship, and the Nursing Associates as well. And the lecturers have our own background. As I said, I still work within practice, and we bring a wealth of our own experiences within that.
Right.
I was talking to a student earlier that was saying she was really interested in working within the Red Cross. We've actually got a lecturer who's done that, and it's been really interesting to sort of bring that in, because our lecturers have that vast experience that we bring into the simulated practice that we do. As I was saying earlier, we do some simulations, so the NMC give us a number of hours that we can use, substitute placement hours, and they can actually come and work with us, as our own professional nurse registration.
Right.
How does this look in practice? And then we can also see that the theory is working, that they can actually translate it to practice, that it's not just theory, that they know in here but can't apply to a
They
person.
actually can do it.
They can actually do it, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think the lecturers ourselves, we're a really friendly bunch.
They
We
are.
really, really well.
I can advocate for that.
Yeah, Steve,
That's a great one.
yeah, Steve, who's our program lead for the MSc, has actually just won an award. They've won an award around. It's called the Clarence Project, and it was around a project that Steve sort of set up with our simulated practice learning area, with a gentleman called Clarence, and he's a mental health patient. And what they did is actually win this award based on some of the simulated practice that they put into place. So that was really fantastic. So we're all interested in research ourselves. We all do our own academic study behind the scenes. We're all sort of studying towards qualifications. We all have our own special interests of things we want to do. I myself speak at like Healthcare Conference UK around different roles within nursing, so we all have that tailored experience. So students often can link in really well with at least one of us, and that works really nicely, and I think that's something really good in the university.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, number 5.
Last one. I think the last one to mention specifically for this is probably our competitive kind of offer for admission in terms of the scholarship that's available and acceptance of the English language waiver as well. I'm not aware of many institutions that accept an English waiver for pre-registration nursing. So that is quite valuable from an admissions point of view. And of course, providing that scholarship funding for pre-registration healthcare is also quite unique and important for the students.
I think that's a highlight, Getting rid of an English language test is something that students are looking forward to. So definitely, number 5.
Yeah.
Great.
So if you've got any questions about studying at Cumbria and the admissions process, just speak to our team at Medcity International. They'd be so happy to help you, and they'll be able to help you on your journey.
Medcity International Academy. Trusted hands forever.